You're listening to The Bounding Box, where we talk about web development, geo development, and everything in between. Welcome to The Bounding Box today, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Juan Carlos Franco. So, Franco, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself, what you do, and what your problem is?
Hi, I'm Juan Carlos Franco, and I'm a software engineer at Esri. I just have to say I've been a long-time listener, first-time caller, so I'm excited about this podcast. No problem so far. Just enjoying life, digging away at code.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, you're always very busy. I know that. But, how long have you been at Esri now? You've been there quite a while, right?
Yes, I joined Esri back in 2011, I believe. Started on the Flex team, working on the Flex viewer, then moved on to the JavaScript team, where I got a chance to work on a presentation app for ArcGIS Online, and then shifted towards the JavaScript API, helping out with the widget space. And lately, I've been focusing on components in the Calcite design system.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of that Flex team from back in the day just went into the JavaScript API, especially when it was decided that there would be a 4X, right? A lot of those teams transitioned over for that.
Yeah, JavaScript won the Silverlight and Flex battle, so we jumped ship.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, it's just a fun ride, right?
Yeah, quite the journey.
So you've been working on the core widgets in the API for a while. That kind of was like your main gig for quite a while on the API. Could you talk a bit about that, like the task of moving from the old Dojo kind of digit stuff to the new widget stuff?
Sure. It was quite refreshing, to be honest. We had, by the time I joined the JavaScript team, the widgets, it wasn't really clear that like each of the widget was its own individual entity. So moving to 4X gave us a chance to sort of align in terms of what we wanted for the API. And having Accessor as a base really helped simplify a lot of code and make the whole API much more cohesive and, I believe, much easier to pick up and start making wonderful apps.
Nice. Yeah, and for people that aren't aware, the accessor in the ArcGIS API for JavaScript basically allows for property watching and allows you to write a bit more reactive code and just makes things a lot more flexible than just listening for events everywhere, which is kind of in 3X, that was kind of just what you had to do. You had to listen for an event and everything. So that was pretty cool for 4X and having the widgets built on that. Now the widgets are built kind of interestingly, right? They do use a VDOM. Can you talk a little bit about how that VDOM works and kind of the library behind it?
Sure. Back in the day when we were doing the whole move to 4X, we were thinking about looking at different options in terms of what we wanted our widgets to, how we wanted them to be built. We looked at React for a while. It was one of the strong candidates at the time, but if adopting it meant that we had to introduce two foundational classes, so it would be potentially two ways of developing in the API itself. So we would have the Accessor way and React. So after a lot of prototyping and going back and forth between a few options, we decided that the best course would be to use Accessor as the base for our widgets and then use a lightweight UI layer on top of it. We went with Maquette for that layer, which is a pretty nifty, small, fast VDOM library, easy to work with. If you've seen any of the example code on out there behind the widget, you would see how it's very familiar, the syntax to React, but it's not really React.
And Maquette has that thing, that projector, right, which basically allows you to treat each widget as kind of its own, basically small kind of VDOM app, right? That, like, I think people will ask a lot of times, well, why didn't you go with React and stuff like that? And if you did that, every widget basically would have to have its own kind of React DOM renderer, or maybe kind of like a what's React Portal today. But Maquette already had that, like this kind of projector idea. Just you project a the VDOM into an element somewhere, and it's its own thing, right? Where they don't have to be tied together in any way.
Right, right. Maquette, so it leaves all the component work to the developer, and it just focuses on that UI layer. So it makes it really easy once you configure it to have something that turns JSX to what Maquette calls hyperscript. It's really straightforward to create any sort of element.
Yeah, that's very cool. No need to worry about any widget registries or any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, it has its pros and its cons, but so far we it's still being
Awesome.
used, still pretty hanging on. So yeah, that's good.
Oh man. Hey, so your latest jam has been lead dev for Calcite Components. So I mean, Calcite Components kind of it's been the Calcite idea, I suppose, or Calcite. I guess it's just recently called Calcite Design System. But there was Calcite Web and stuff, but that's kind of been around for a while. I mean, can you talk about what the Calcite Components project is and kind of what its overarching goal is?
Totally. So anyone that hasn't heard about Calcite components, Calcite is Esri's design system, and I've been working to like on the side of creating custom elements that support the components that we need from the design system. These are we're building them using Stencil, and what we end up with is a library of custom elements that are ready to play and play. And Calcite has had many iterations in the past with the same goal where we wanted to have a pool of components for different teams to pick and start using in their projects and focus on the main meat, you could say. And I think as of recently, the Calcite Components project has really picked up and demonstrated that it is possible now with custom elements being the base of that idea. So I'm happy to hear that a lot of teams are picking it up, really enjoying the experience of starting with a set of components that where the styling is already decided, the accessibility is already built in, and just allows them to concentrate on the main aspects of their app or project.
Yeah, I remember a while ago, a few years ago, we were seeing stuff about doing the custom elements and trying to introduce that. And it required a lot of polyfills and stuff like that. It wasn't really supported in browsers anywhere. And I think the tooling today just makes building those web components and custom elements stuff much easier now than it used to be. Right? I guess it was Polymer back then, but even Polymer today turns into like lit and stuff. So even if it had gone down that path way back then, you'd probably be doing rewrites today. So we ended up in a pretty good spot there, right?
Yeah, it's a great time to be involved in web development. The browsers are really picking up the speed, and the need to polyfill things. Once in a while, you still run into that, but it's less. So that's pretty cool.
And I think other than the JavaScript API for like the teams that are building apps that have maps and stuff in it, I mean, Calcite Components is pretty much used almost everywhere now. I mean, almost all the apps teams have adopted it in one way or another. So it's definitely getting a lot of initial feedback and stuff. So we're definitely dogfooding that particular project.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's really exciting work.
And it is on GitHub, right? So if people that our users are using it, they run into issues. They could go on to GitHub and they could create issues there, stuff like that to get some feedback to the team, right?
Yes, we also have a reference page under the developers doc under ArcGIS. Yeah, like just like you said, the source code and the components are out there for people to check out, try out, and let us know what they think.
And there's been a lot more. I saw recently that I remember that there was one mapping tutorial up on the Calcite site, but then I checked like a month ago or so, and I noticed there's like two or three more tutorials up now. So I guess I didn't catch them all as they've been going up, but that's cool.
Yeah, the team's working hard in adding more resources to we have examples showing how to wire up the components inside different frameworks. If you wanted to bring in the JavaScript API, we have some examples showing how to do that. So we're trying to make it easier for people to pick them up and start using them.
And there's Calcite components inside the JavaScript API widgets now, right? Not all of them are fully moved over, but I think most of them are, aren't they?
Yes, it's a gradual thing we're doing. So every release, whenever we're introducing um, a new feature, a new design aspect to a widget, we try to bring in Calcite components whenever possible. And also doing some work there to just swap out any custom pre-Calcite components with their equivalents.
And I think that's one thing that people may not really realize is that when the team is working on either widgets or there's Calcite stuff happening, that there's also designers in there as well, providing feedback. I mean, UI and UX designs, and it's not like, oh, you guys should add a new widget, just get it in within the next release, right? I mean, there's a lot of iterations and feedback between different teams for that kind of stuff, right?
Yes. So the team has been going through putting in a lot of effort to try to make that whole process better. So just like you said, not just any issue that comes in, we just immediately push it out to production. There's a lot of enhancements or bug fixes that could well, it's more for enhancements, but there's a lot of cases where that means that the design needs to be updated, and sometimes those updates end up affecting more than one piece of the puzzle there. So yeah, it's quite the whole process. The whole design engineering team working together has been really good, and we're working to make it better.
That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I know. Like, even like with the widgets, like the search widget is used in a couple of other widgets. So if anything had to be tweaked there, you would notice it like a bunch of other places. Not like it's just one place you would notice a change somewhere.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome, Franco. Awesome. So before I let you go, Franco, I need to tap you here for any tips or tricks for listeners that are working with the API or web components or Calcite components or anything at all that you want to drop for a tip.
Cool. I'd say to use a source loop. It sounds pretty simple, but just going through source code on GitHub, I found it to be a great learning resource. It can help you discover new APIs, patterns, or concepts that maybe you haven't been exposed to before. In JavaScript land, there's a new popular library or framework around the corner. So there's plenty of resources there to kind of check out and see what makes them special and try to learn and adopt it into your own projects. In terms of actual practical things that people can use, would you consider apps or plugins a tip?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So I'm a big fan of using the keyboard whenever possible. So I have a few apps that help me do things in a more efficient way, or at least try to avoid the mouse as much as I can. One of them is called Alfred. It's an app launcher on steroids. There's another one that I use called Rectangle, and Rectangle helps you move windows around and resize them to different parts of the screen. Dash I use on a daily basis. It's a reference lookup, and it also has a neat feature where it allows you to pull in GitHub repos as documentation sources. That's pretty helpful.
Oh, that's nice.
And for writing HTML or CSS, Emmet is a pretty cool little toolkit. It helps you with some shortcuts and actions, quickly write up some HTML or CSS if you needed. So if you are into keyboard, all the things, these apps will definitely be of interest to you.
Oh, that's awesome, Franco. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'll let you go on your day, and thank you very much for being here.
Awesome. Thanks. And glad to be here. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you for listening to the Boundary Box today. Please subscribe for more content.